Hey, this is Andrew Brown from the AWS Cloud Project Bootcamp, bringing you another video. And this time we are looking at week X. This is our last instructional week where we are cleaning up the application, finishing everything we have to do to get it working, preparing it for submissions and grading. So, we did a lot of IAC stuff. We did not necessarily make sure that the application was in a working state. We made an architectural change where we used that static front end hosting. So, we got to make sure we get the application back into a working state. And there were a few things that we have to do. So making the app work, there might be some application development. There's some stuff that we're leaving on the table. I would like to bring a Memento back if I can. Again, we had issues with prior, not specifically to Memento, but it was more so get pod ports or something connecting to it, and that was been resolved now. So it'd be really nice to try to bring back Memento for some of those live features. AppSync we were also supposed to use. Which that's something else that we left on the table. That was supposed to give us that real-time component. Now that I remember why we were bringing AppSync in. There's other ways for us to do real-time stuff, but that was unfortunate that we had to leave that on the table as well because we were going to use that real-time component. But anyway, what I'm going to do is go over here. I just want to show you that I've made a new branch called Week X. Of course, you work in main, I work in Week X. And so what we are going to do here is we're just going to, get our application working again. So we have the front end deployed and the back end deployed. Let's go take a look at what we had here. So I think last week we had deployed CloudFront, and in Route 53 here, we had a hosted zone. And in here, we're pointing this to CloudFront now. So I haven't tested it yet. It shouldn't work, but we can try it out and see what happens. So I'm gonna go here and do CRUD. Well, the reason why it would not work is because there's nothing in that repository right now. So we didn't figure out a way to deliver that content to that bucket. But I guess the easiest thing that we could do is just compile out the front end and then just drag it on over. So let's take a look at how that would work here. So in our front end React.js, we have a package.json, and we have one for scripts start, and there's scripts build. So build might be what we want to do to build it, but let's just go take a look at that container we wrote earlier. And so this one, that's npm start for that one. Down below here, this one is doing from a build. So this runs Nginx. I'm just trying to look here. Yeah, so we do an npm run build. So that's what we're going to have to do. We're going to have to run npm run build to build this stuff out. And I think that's just how it's going to work. Notice up here that we are running environment variables. So we do have to have a bunch of environment variables set when we run the npm run build. Otherwise, it's not going to work correctly. We notice we're passing in the args here as well. Let's go take a look at our script that we're using for bin. And we're going to go down to front end, and we'll make a new one here. I'm going to call this static build because that's what we're doing. We're going to build it statically, and I'm just going to copy the contents here, not because we're going to use all of it, but we need the same environment variables that are being set here. So I just want to make sure that they are all getting set. And so it looks like we manually set them here with the exception of the region. So I guess the way we could do this is we need to do an npm run build. And then we need to make sure that all of these are being executed with it. So the way we could do that is we could just clear this out here. Because a lot of times when you want to bring over environment variables, you can just put them prior to the command like this, and it should bring them along. Now, will that work for npm run build? I don't know, but we will find out here in a moment. A few other things here. We have our ABS. This is for the pathing, so this goes to our front-end React.js path. So that seems fine to me. The thing is, this needs to be in the context of this path, so what I can do is I can just cd into this path as such. And so that way, we'll be in the right place, and when we run this npm run build, it'll be in the context that it is. So let's find out if this actually works. We can first just run it manually here, so let's just make sure we are in the correct directory. So I'm going to go to front-end React.js here. I'm going to go ahead and paste this in. I'm going to hit enter. And then we'll see what happens. Creating an optimized production build. Why should you do it regularly? That's fine. I just want it to build, so we're going to just see how long it takes to build. While that is going, if it even is, I don't know if it's hanging. I think that it's going to end up in this build directory, so that's what we are waiting for to see. So yeah, I don't know how long this takes, but I'll be back here in a moment. I just don't want you to watch me waiting. And also we can determine how long it is, if it's hanging, okay? All right, so I thought it was hanging, and I was just researching if it did hang, but it turns out that it did apparently complete. It did take a little bit of time, but you can see that we have a bunch of warnings here. So I'm just curious about our warnings. So auto prefixer start value has mixed support. Consider using flex start instead. So there are some, I think that's CSS specific here, but it's not telling me exactly where this is. Curious what this is. I wonder if we can get rid of most of these errors because they're kind of annoying, or warnings. Yeah, I'm not 100% sure where that one's showing up, but that clearly is a CSS issue. Unreachable code on line 21, expected a default case. JSON is defined but never used. Expected this, instead saw this. So yeah, we should probably clean these up. It's not fun doing this, but what if I can drag this up here so I can see it side by side? I know there's a way we can split vertically, but I don't know how to do it. So let's just work our way back and just fix what we can. So the first one it's complaining about is line 56 for load data. So we'll open up the user feed page here. And in here on line 56, it's saying React hook use effect is missing dependency load data. Either include it or resolve the dependency array. I mean, there's nothing to pass in here, so that's why we have it. I never know what to do with those. It's just kind of annoying, these errors. I personally do not like React. I do not use React on my day-to-day. We're using React in this project because it's so darn popular. Yeah, I don't know what it wants here. I mean, that's just stuff that it watches on. I don't really want to watch on anything per se. And I wonder if we actually need this here, and maybe it's because we're just not watching on something correctly, but I don't personally know. So we'll skip that one because I don't know what to do with that. We'll go to the next one because there's some easy ones where we see expected triple doing double equals. So we'll go to the sign-in page. In JavaScript, you're generally supposed to do triple equals because it's just the quirk of the language. So here we'll just give it triples. Other languages it's usually just doubles. I always think of that sketch from what's that show called? By Tim Robinson. 1 second. Yeah, there's this sketch from I Think You Should Leave where it has this famous actor Bob Odenkirk or whatever his name is, and he's talking about owning triples of classic cars. It's obviously not true, but like of the Nova, the Charger, and the whatever that one is. It's kind of funny, but I'm just saying we're putting triples in, so that was kind of my tie in there. It didn't really work, sorry, but we'll go back here and just continue on. So on line 22, we did that one for sign in, so that one should vanish. A lot of these are just going to be these triple equal stuff. Then on this one, we got line 27, so we'll go here. On 129, we'll fix this one. Whoops. And then we'll do this one here on the equals. On 132, we just did that one, so 135 as well. If you're wondering how I'm able to jump to it, I'm using Vim commands, which allow me to quickly navigate to stuff, which is really nice. I'm going to make my way over to message groups. So we're going to go to line 10. Maybe that's the wrong one. Message groups page. Line 10 here. it's assigned but never used, so it's interesting. Set popped. Okay, if it's never used, we can just remove it. Seems like we need both, though. We could probably just ignore that. I just don't understand why it's never used. Same thing with the either included or remove the dependency array, so I'm not sure what to do that. Message group page popped but is never used. I'm actually quite surprised it's never used. React hooked use effect is missing. Popped. More equals here. Line 35. Okay. Then we have the reply form. Bomb icon is never used. So apparently we never use that. And that makes sense because in a reply, we're not setting the expiry on that. Profile info, so we'll open that one up, profile info. This will be line 28. We'll put an equals on this one. Profile form.js. This will be on line 50. It says here, we never did end up using that. I'm just going to comment it out, but that might be something we might want to do later. Message group items. I'm going to open that one up. This will be on line 27. Message form. So we'll open this one up. Message form. It's saying this JSON's never used, so we could probably take that out. I didn't even know that was a thing from the DOM router. I'm not sure why that's there. We'll take that out, so that will reduce more stuff. Then we have desktop sidebar. I'm not sure what it's complaining about that, but let's take a look. So here, line 36. Oh, because these go nowhere. So I mean, like, these pages should technically exist. So go about. Terms of service. Privacy policy. Okay. We have our desktop navigation links. And again, we can fix these later. If we can generate this out with ChatGPT very quickly, so it shouldn't be too hard to fix these things. Navigation link. Line 18. So what's the issue here? Unexpected default case. It's good practice to always have like a default. And here it would just be break. Hopefully that makes them happy. And this, it's hard to say where this is. Start value has mixed support. So somewhere in our CSS, we're doing something like, instead of doing flex start, we're just doing start. So we'd have to search across all of our stuff to find that. So let me see if I can find that because it's kind of annoying to see that there. So we'll go in here and say find. Oops, we'll say edit, find in files. I'm going to do align items start. And there they are. So these are supposed to be flex start. This one would be flex start. And that one would be flex start. Easy fixes. Okay. So there was 4 of these. So I'm not sure if there's any other ones. It could be also justify content. So justify content. No, it's just that one. Just try start as well. That might be too hard. I'll put just this. Here's one here. I'm not sure why. Maybe I missed it, but there. That was 4 of them, so that should resolve that. What I'm going to do is go check where this build happens. Let's check our code here. I just want to make sure that we're not committing those changes there, but we'll go back over here. I want to run the static build again. This time I want to try it with the script we just wrote. So I'm going to do chmod. And I'll bump that up a little bit so folks can see what I'm doing here. But we'll type in clear chmod u plus x bin. Oops. Oh, I got to go back a directory. Sorry. So do chmod u plus x bin front end static build. And then we'll run it. So we'll do bin front end static build. We'll hit enter. And we'll let that go ahead and build. So this did take a little bit of time. Wasn't as fast as I was hoping for, but I'll be back here in a moment when it outputs some stuff, okay? And so, yeah, I thought I might have typed something wrong there. So in the recovery page, I accidentally put an equals instead of or a minus instead of an equals on line 27. So I'll go there and just resolve that issue there. I'll go ahead and save that. I'm going to hit up and recompile. While that is going, I'm just going to double check these files, making sure I didn't make any kind of obvious mistake, just so that we are speeding this up. I normally review my my commits in my usual workflow. Again, I use MacVim and I use GitX, so my workflow is a bit different, where it's a lot easier for me to audit this stuff. But I guess the thing is that if you're working with a company, you'd always be putting these in pull requests and you'd be reviewing them more appropriately. So, but that we didn't do that in the workflow, at least for this cohort. So, something that will change for next time around. Okay, so let's take a look here and figure out what has ran here. Sometimes it's hard to see what's going on here. So I'm just looking for the last one. So that's where it errored last time. And so we have less problems. This one, I don't remember it showing up here before. Let's go find that one. Profile form, JS. And this is going to be on line 91. So it says we never use this data anywhere. So I'm just going to comment it out because it doesn't do anything. So we'll just do that. If we need to use it, we absolutely can, but I'm just commenting out for the time being. It's also interesting. I'm seeing ones that maybe I just didn't notice them before, but it seems like new ones here. The href attribute requires a valid value to be accessible. Provide a valid navigable address value if you cannot provide it, blah, blah, blah. So we have our trend items, and that's the stuff on the right-hand side where I think we just have a pound. So we can ignore that for now. We're going to have to decide what to do with those components. And there's just a lot of these use effect hooks. If you know anything about use effect hooks or stuff like that, love to hear it. I don't know what to do with that kind of stuff, but it would be nice if we could get rid of all those errors. But we've done definitely some cleanup here. The one thing I want to see is where did this stuff build out to? I'm going to assume it's in this build directory, and we have this static directory here. So I think we would know this if we just go check our Docker file that we had here earlier, because that's going to copy over particular stuff. So here it goes, period, frontend JS, and it's copying the contents from build. So it seems like it's grabbing everything here. The one way we can definitely know that this is the correct directory is if we go to the index here, because this will reference static. So if I go into here, yeah, the search is not the easiest to use, but yes, it is. Okay, great. And I don't know why this prints as one line. I think that's kind of silly, but this is clearly referencing the static content. So it's basically the contents of this folder here. So I'm going to go back over here and set up static building for our application. Now what I want to do is test that this works by placing this in CloudFront. Now this is going to be tricky because it might render the site, but it should error out because it can't actually get data because we haven't seeded our database and stuff like that. So we might have to jump around all over the place to get this working in a nice clean fashion. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to download this build directory. So I actually just want the contents of it because we need to upload it to S3, right? So I'm going to go ahead and we should zip it first before we download it. I know we did zipping 1 week and I just forget how to do it. But I'm just going to type here. I think it's like zip. We'll just go ask ChatGPT. Oh yeah, my session's expired. Log in. Would love to give Bard a go. Just again, don't feel like using my personal account. It's bizarre that I can use my ExamPro account here, but for Bard it wasn't able to. It's Google's product. Do you think that they would allow you to do that? Bard, Google. Okay, just gonna try it again, see if it lets me try it. Yeah, see, this is where it's silly. Why can't I use my company account? Maybe because they don't want companies to use it, and that's the reason why. So then there's maybe less legality, but zip a directory, zip the contents of a directory called build using Linux. Anytime it wants to tell me, just give me the damn command. It really likes to overcomplicate things here. I don't need that much information. Just give me the command. That looks right, yeah. So that's probably what it is. I'm gonna go here. Great, and so now we have this zip. I'm gonna go ahead and download it. Okay, so you want to download that to your computer, and then once it's downloaded, and it is, then we can go open it up and bring it over to S3. So here it is. It also has the folder inside of it, and so we want to copy this contents into our S3 bucket. I'm going to go delete out this zip for now. I'm going to make my way over to AWS. We're going to go ahead and sign in here. I'm going to make my way over to S3. We're going to find our new bucket. And in here, I have Crutter somewhere. So I'm going to type in crutter.com. And one of these buckets is public. It's going to be the root domain, as we decided here. And I just want to drag, I just want to drag the contents in here. So I'm just going to try to show that on screen here. It's a bit tricky. So I'm just going to go ahead and select it all in this folder, see? And then I'm going to drag it on over here. And I think that should work. Sometimes when you're in zips, it gives you some trouble because it's not actually in a folder. Notice it's not actually taking effect, which is kind of annoying. So what I'm going to do is just go up one directory. I'm just going to drag this folder, drag this folder to my desktop. See, now it's extracting it out. It's just a weird thing that Windows has. That's kind of an issue. We'll go over here into that build directory. And so now I'm going to copy that contents. We'll have less trouble. So we'll go here and we'll drag that over. And I'm going to go ahead and hit upload. Okay. And so now it's uploading the contents of those files. Clearly there's a lot of files. So this will take some time. But the thing is that, as you keep working on this, I guess it wasn't actually that bad. But did it upload those folders? I think it should. So if we go back to the destination bucket here, there we go. And so now it should have everything that CloudFront needs to do its business. So what I'm going to do is make my way over to the crutter.com domain and see what happens. So if we go over here, it's showing us our web application. And so that is pretty good. One thing that I would like to do is I would like to be able to quickly sync this data and validate it. And so I've actually written a tool for that. It would make a really great mini bootcamp for it. I'm just trying to remember what I called it. So, and I actually use it for our production websites. It's a very useful tool. Static, I think it's under Teacher Seat. It's an open source project. Static. What did I call this? Well, it's part of my marketing website. So I'm going to go to my marketing website for Exampro Co. and find out what it is. I mean, we don't have to use it, but it just makes things a lot easier. And I don't know, we can learn something here. So it is called, what did I call it? Oh, this is Exampro. I want Exampro Marketing. Sorry. And the library is called AWS S3 Website Sync. So I made this specifically for syncing stuff to S3, and so that is the name of this. If we want to find it here, I think it's under Teacher Seat. And I think I recently updated the documentation. I think I did. So we'll go to Teacher Seat, repositories, S3. Here it is. And I made a workspace so that I could work alongside it. So we'll go take a look here. I'm not sure how the documentation is. amazing documentation. But that's something that we can go ahead and improve very quickly. So I'm just going to open this up in Gitpod. I'm going to quickly improve the documentation as it should be. This is a great library. It works really well. But I'm going to go over here and just start bringing over some documentation for it. So if we go into the example marketing site, I'm just going to put in the documentation on how to use it. So there's these things called rake files. Other languages have them, but Ruby, like C, has make files, but rake files are just an easier way to run like scripts, kind of like our bin scripts that we've been doing, but they use a DSL, a domain-specific language, to do that. And so down below here, I have this build script here, and I believe this is the one. Oh, here, the sync. So here's the sync, and it runs the runner, and so that's what we are going to do. So I just want to kind of document that because apparently I never documented it. And so I'm just going to say AWS S3 website sync. This is a tool to sync a folder from your local developer environment to your S3 bucket, and then invalidate the CloudFront cache. It takes inspiration. I won't write that in there yet, but the thing is that I did kind of model it after Terraform a little bit for fun, just like the plan and apply commands. So the way you use it is we need to install it. So that's the first thing. So we'll go to the gem file. And so I'm just going to copy, I don't know if we need .env for that, but I'll grab it over here. And so, how to use, create a gem file that that installs the gem. So that would be, whoops, this here. Take out more in here. We're going to specify no Kagiri because we might need it. It's always a big pain in the butt, no Kagiri. I don't think we actually need it. I don't know if we need .env there, but I'm just going to put it there anyway. .env is how we load m.dot files. So okay, create a rake file. So this is create gem file. We'll just say run, then proceed to do a bundle install. We don't actually have to specify the Ruby version here, but it is good practice to do that because then we know what it runs against, but I'm just going to take it out there to make our lives easier. Put this on a new line. Sometimes it's easier when they're on a new line like this. Require gems. Create a rake file with the following. Okay, and I'll go over here. And we will go into our rake file here. And I mean, we have .env there. That's in case we want to include it. Probably is really nice when you want to debug stuff. But I'm just going to go here and say this. It's also a Ruby file, but it's named, I guess it's just not named with any .rb on the end of it. Actually, rake files are normally named .rake, but they're still Ruby files. And I'm just going back to wherever that repo was. So we'll go down below here to our, not our build directory, but our sync. I'll copy this one. We'll go ahead and paste that in here. Okay. And so this is an example of one. So it really depends on, I don't know why this won't drag down. That's really frustrating. Look, I'm dragging it down and it keeps, there it goes back to the top here. So you can put them out here. You don't really need to do that. I'm just going to take those out. And so, whatever you need to pass along. So we definitely need to have an access key, an ID, and a secret because it needs to use that for the AWS CLI. So the S3 bucket, the CloudFront distribution, the build directory, the output change set path, the auto approve, whether it'll auto approve or not, ignore or no change. It's pretty straightforward what these things do, but this repository that I built here, the sync thing, I can just go find it again. Website sync. No, I don't want to open it up in GitHub or Gitpod. I just want to find it here. Let's try this again. Teacher seat, S3 sync. There it is. But this project, I mean, I guess I do have it open. We can just take a look at it here. But the way Ruby gems work is you create a gem spec file, and that gem spec file is going to point to the files that should be included. So let's say include the lib directory here, so up here. And it always follows the same pattern where you'll have this first file here, and then you create a folder with the same name of the file that includes all those files. And then if we open it up, the main thing that we're running is the runner. So the runner is the thing that we're using. Notice that I'm using named parameters. This is very a good way of making sure you understand your inputs and outputs and make code very easy to test. I didn't write test code for this, but it is pretty darn straightforward. But the idea is that when you run the runner, it's going to first do a plan. Okay, and a plan is kind of like a Terraform plan. It's going to tell you what it's about to change. The preview is, I believe, outputting the content of the change set. So remember how we're using CloudFormation change sets? This makes change sets as well for your files. Then it goes through here and it looks for actions. Yeah, so the thing is, this will output a file with actions, and based on that, it's going to then decide what to do with it. So it's going to collect all those items together. It's going to iterate through them, and then it's going to plan or apply those operations. And then it's going to prompt you, say, do you want to do this, yes or no? If you have auto approve off, then it won't show that to you. Okay, but we can go in here and just take a look at what this stuff does. So here, it will list out the local files, and then it will list out the remote files, and then it will do a diff between the two. And so it's not like super complicated. It uses MD5 hashes to compare the files. For the apply, it's a little bit more going on here, but you can see we're using the AWS SDK. So we create, we get our S3 bucket, and then for the ones that we wanted to delete, we run our delete function. For the ones we want to create or update, we create or update. And for invalidation, for I'm assuming that's for CloudFront. That's what we do. So you see the delete. It goes through here, it deletes the files. For this one, it updates them. There's a bit of complexity for the file extensions here, so this is not perfect, but it does work. And then we have the part where it invalidates the CloudFront cache. So this is the library. Hopefully it works correctly, but it's not super complicated. And it would be a really good coding project or application code project for beginners that I would love to do at one point. But we're just going to go ahead and use it because that's what I want to get out of it here today. So what we're going to do is go ahead and just update this. So just add README information on how to use. And actually, I didn't finish all the instructions here. So once you have your rake command, so up here, create rake file and run sync. So to do this, then we can just sync it by, then to proceed to sync, you just type rake, well, maybe bundle exec rake sync. You don't always have to put bundle exec in the front of it, but bundle exec just means do in the context of bundler, so it uses the gems. Sometimes you can just do rake sync, but I'm just putting that there just in case. And so there is our fancy documentation. So we'll do that, and we will sync that up. And I'm just going to go back and check the version here because I'm not 100% sure about the version of this here. 101 is the latest. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make my way back over to our code base so we can close out this one. I mean, you never had to open it, but it was just more so watching me do that. I'm going to come back over to our application here, and we do have that build static file. This thing, it can use a rake command. We don't have to use a rake command. What we can do is write a bin script so we can keep in the convention that we're doing. If we were writing a Ruby project, we could have done everything in rake if we wanted to. We didn't have to have any of these bin directories. There's always different ways of doing things in different kinds of languages and ecosystems. But for cloud-based ones, I really like this bin directory stuff here. So in our front end, I'm going to make a new one, and this file is going to be called sync. Okay, and in here, what we'll do is we'll go back over to our web sync here. We're going to give this a refresh, and we're going to get some code. So the first thing is that we do need this sync command, and this says .env, but we're actually not loading it anywhere. .env is if you wanted to load those environment variables, but this will automatically, or this should automatically pull this out of your system environment variables. I don't think we have to set that. What I'm going to do is go ahead and copy and paste this here. And we've written a Ruby script before. We were using herbs, so we didn't have any dependencies, but let's go take a look at where that was. That was maybe under the back end here. And in here we had generate envs. So we're going to go ahead and grab this. I'm going to go ahead and paste that in here. The other thing is we want to include this one here. So we'll grab that and we'll paste that in here. Okay. And we don't need this task sync here, so I'll just take that out. Okay. But we do have to have this gem installed. And we can use bundler. We didn't over here. I'm going to just hope that I can just install it wherever and it will just work. So let's see if that works. So we'll do gem install AWS S3 website sync. It seems to be installing all the dependencies, no problem here. Okay. And over here we have a bunch of environment variables. I know these ones are set. The S3 bucket might not be set. So these, I would probably mark these as like sync. So we just distinctly know what they are. So I'm going to do that because it is for the syncing here. And I'm just trying to think about this for a moment here. Where do we want to place this stuff? Well, what we could do, let's look up ruby.env. So .env GitHub. And we'll go down here below because I do believe that we can specify where we load it. Is this the Ruby one? This isn't the Ruby one. Ruby. So that person's face is all over the place. It's kind of weird. So I'm just trying to find the original one. Is this the one that we use? That says Rails. I don't want Rails. I just want the regular one. It says it's Go. If we can't find it that way, another way to find it is via Ruby Gems. So Ruby Gems, like every kind of application you built has a online repository that says where the libraries are, and so I'm just going to type it in, and that way we can link to the correct one. So if we go here, we can see that this is 2.81. This is probably the one we're using because it has the most downloads. But over here on the right-hand side, we can go to its homepage, which will probably link to GitHub. And so it's Beekeepers is the one we're looking for. So I think that was one that we might have clicked on before, but we'll scroll on down because what I'm looking for is how do we load a specific file? Because notice here we do require.env and then we do .env load, but I want to specify the exact file I want to load, so that's what we'll try to do, because then we can just kind of bring that in that way. I think that'll make things a lot cleaner. So I wasn't sure if we were going to use that, but we are now. And so we'll go back over here. I'm going to take the .env load. And I'm going to go ahead and paste that in here. And then we can specify where this file is. Whoops. .load. And did we do any absolute pathing here for this one? No, we did not. So what I want to do here is I want to load a file that's going to sit in front end. We could also do it top level, I suppose, as well, to make our lives a bit easier. And that way we could actually just put in an absolute link to save us some time. So I'm just going to say the file. Of course, you should not hard code values in, but if it's our own project and we're working in the same, if we're giving everyone Git pods, then it's less of a problem. So that's one advantage of working in Gitpod. But if you have to support environments that are not, if it's not company policy to use the same environment, then you're going to run into some trouble. I'm going to just type in here Bootcamp CRUD 2023, and this one's going to be .env. This one will be sync. I mean, I suppose we could also possibly grab it from there, but we'll go over to our generators. Since we've been using these earlier, I'm going to make a new one here. I'm going to call this one sync.env-erb. Okay. And in here, of course, we have some values set up. But the ones we want are, we don't need these ones because these will get loaded anyway, I think. I'm just going to paste this one in. And then we will go down here, and I'm going to paste this one in. And we'll go down here. And I'm going to paste this one in. And I'm going to go down to this one. And paste that one in. And auto approve. Oops. And we'll put that one in here. So these use what? Equals? They use equals, yeah. So in here, I'm going to go equals false. I don't want to auto approve it just yet. We have our sync output change path. We have our sync build directory and a few other things. So the S3 bucket is pretty clear. This one's going to be crudder.com. I think it's just the name it needs. Then we have our CloudFront distribution ID. So I'm going to make my way back over to CloudFront here. And I want to grab its distribution ID, which is up here. So grab that there. Probably put single quotations around this stuff. I can't remember if that's what we did. We did not. So if they did not, let's just not do that so we have less problems. The build directory is going to be workspace, AWS, Bootcamp, CRUD 2023, front-end, React.js /build. Oh, but this is the build directory for, yeah, that we're trying to copy. That's right. So the build directory is what we are building out. Then we need to output our changes here. I think we made a temp directory last week. Did we not? I thought we made a temp directory. Maybe we rolled back on that. So I'm going to make a new folder here, just call it temp. And I'm going to make a new file in here called .keep. Oh, you know what I think it is that it's not that we didn't create a temp directory. I think it's that we did not commit the temp directory to the repo. And that's why it's not hanging around. Because if we go into our git ignore, we definitely added that temp directory. But I'm going to go git add temp.keep. And it says if you really want to add it, use a -f. I definitely do. So I'm going to do that. It doesn't like it there. So I'm just going to put it after the add. There we are. And we'll go up here. I'm going to just say keep the temp directory. Okay, because I definitely want to have that there. I'm not sure why it's doing that because that one has already been pushed. But so now that temp directory should hang around, but not necessarily keep any of the files within it. So this one is going to go to our workspace, AWS Bootcamp, CRUD 2023. We could, of course, also put in here the that env here if we really wanted to. So we can go grep. It's this one here. I suppose we should. As the bootcamp's been going on, I just been wanting to get things done. And so there's been more hard coding of stuff, eh? But we'll go ahead and paste this in here. And I'm just going to not clear out all of that. But we'll do this, and this is supposed to say env as such. And then we can do the same thing here. And we'll paste that in here and close it off like that. So this will go to our temp directory. And I really want to see what this is. I want to see if it has a trailing or / on that. So I'm just going to do that. Or we can just probably echo this, sorry. Yeah, it doesn't have a trailing /. Okay, great. So we'll do that. And so that will be where the change set will go. Will be into the temp directory. Was there anything that we missed here? The S3 bucket's there. And yeah, we're not going to set these because they're already set. This here silent says like if it can list out files that have no changes, and we can just say like this file has had no change. Or if something needs to get ignored, it just says silence them so we don't have to hear about them. These are the ignored files, right? So these just don't log out the ignore ones or ones that have no change so we can clearly see what we're doing. We'll see that as we run the tool, okay? So these are set in here. I'm going to go update our front end one so it just generates out both of these. So it's a little bit easier. So if we go into our bin directory here, into our front end, and we go into the generate env, you'll notice we have this herb as from here before. I'm going to copy this. We're going to paste this down below. This is one's going to just be called sync. Sync like that. And we're just going to name it sync like that. So that way, when we run this, and we'll run it right now, it'll generate out both of them. So we'll do bin front end, generate env. And so now we should have our sync here. And that looks good to me. We're going to make our way back over to our new Ruby script that we were just writing, wherever that is. Here. And so yeah, we have the absolute path here. Again, we could put the env, because it can load envs, right? So we could put that Thea one in there if we wanted to. But I'm just going to hard code it. So I'm going to say env path here. And if this works, then it should be able to print out some of the stuff here. So I'm going to grab this, and I'm just going to say puts env this, because if it's working, then we should be able to see it. I'm going to just go ahead and comment this out for the time being. Okay. And I just want to see that this actually works and it doesn't complain about the these files here. So gem install.env as well. And so I'm going to go here and try to run the script. Front end sync. Maybe we have to chmod this first. U plus X. And we'll go back over here and we'll attempt to run it. And so it's printing it out. So to me, that tells me that it's aware of the stuff that we need to run. There's no harm in printing out some of these things. We obviously don't want to print out our application credentials, but I think some of these things I'm just going to copy over. I know we had the puts there before, I deleted them, but I'm bringing them back, okay? So we'll just say puts here, and I'm just going to do this. And we'll have interpolation. That's how you do it in Ruby, like this. Told you to be doing more Ruby in this course. Ruby's great. It's a great language. It needs more love. It used to have tons of love. But, you know, use whatever you're most comfortable with or whatever you think is going to get you the job. I'm just going to go say your put so and vars. We could probably do the default region too. So like here we have AWS default region, just so we know where it's going. And maybe this will help you with stuff. The only thing we're not going to print out there is our AWS credentials, okay? And we usually put this in the front. Okay. So I'm just going to go ahead and run this again so we can see them. Great, and so we can kind of see some information about what it's going to do, where it's going to place files. Output change set path. I don't know if we have to also specify the name of the change set. I don't think so. But anyway, what I want to do is I want to run this here. And this thing here should not attempt to run because auto approve is on false. And so if we go ahead and hit up here, we'll scroll up, we'll see what the problem is. So it says workspace, bootcamp, creditor, temp is a directory. So it's expecting this to be a file, a change set file. And that is totally fine. So what we can do here is we can just give it a more explicit name. So I'm going to go to our sync down below here. I think what it's just saying is like, I'm going to just put sync change set .json. We'll try that again. And so now it is working. So what it's doing here is it's showing all the things that it's running because I have that logging out in the application. This is very useful if you want to kind of follow along. So if you go back into the code, and I think this is good, well-written code, but except for the fact there's no test code. But if we go into this library here, I just want to show you so you can debug it yourself. We have the runner.run, so that is indicating that this is running the runner. And in here I have the logger, so it's logging that line there. So it says list.local, so as you go down here, it's going to go into plan. And so if we go back over here and we check the plan, it's doing this local, list.local. If we go into list.local, then you can see it logging there. So you can kind of figure out what it's actually running. So it's doing a plan. I don't know why I didn't log plan there. It's not like that big of a deal, but the idea is that you can see it's listing the local, doing the remote. It's planning to delete. It's planning to create an update, stuff like that. And so it says create a change set called sync change set. Web sync will perform the following operations: ignore 8, delete 0, create 0, update 0, note changes 28. And notice that it didn't list anything out, but that's because we told it not to. So what I'm going to do, we already quit it, so it's not going to, well, there's nothing for it to do, so that's why it won't actually make any changes. So it's okay that we, if we had it set to true, because it wouldn't have ran anyway. But let's go back over to our sync tool. I just want to show you some of the options we can do to change it. So if we took this out here, just going to comment that out. We're going to run this again, and then we'll see what it says. Oh, I guess we have to have it there. So I'll go here, and I'm just going to take this out like that. So there's nothing for it to do. And so now it's printing out all the files. So it's saying here, we're going to ignore these files. These ones have no change. So it's up to you how you want to visualize this. So I'm just going to take this and put that back in there. I personally don't want to see that stuff because I already know what they are. But we clearly haven't changed anything. So now what we want to do is actually go ahead and change something. So what we can do here is we will go back to our application, to our front end, and we'll just make some kind of superficial change. So let's say we want to put an exclamation here on the about. That's what I'm thinking we'll do. Because it just has to be something small. So what I'm going to open up is the, was it navigation? Or it's like sidebar JS down below here. I'm going to give this one an exclamation mark. We're going to save that. I'm going to go and hit up until we get to our other command or build command. Or we could just run it manually, not be lazy. And that'll be front end, was it static build? Static build, yep. We'll run that. And so we'll let that build. I'll be back here in a moment when it's done. It doesn't take that long, but it does take a little bit of seconds here. All right, so we are back. And so it generated that out. And so now what I want to do is I want to run my sync tool again, and we want to see if there's been any changes. And notice it says there's been a few changes. So here, And by the way, like the configuration we copied was for my web application. I'm not using React, so some of the ignore files might need to be different. But here it says 23 no changes. That makes sense. It wants to update the index file. That makes sense. The asset manifest. That makes sense. And then here we got the main 04 whatever. So it's adding this thing in here every time. And so what that is, it's a it's like a digest. It's so that it will always bust the cache. And so every time we deploy, this value is probably going to change. And notice down below here, it's deleting the old ones. So that's good that it's deleting the old ones. Because this tool removed the old ones. So every time we deploy, it's always going to delete the old ones and add the new ones. There could be a case where you might want to keep older versions, but for the most part, you always want to bust the cache. So this is what it's going to do every single time. And this seems fine to me. So I'm going to go ahead and type yes, and we're going to see if it's going to go ahead and deploy that. The only thing I don't know is if the CloudFront will invalidate correctly. I recently updated this, and I don't know if I fixed it in my site, but it was because CloudFront made a change in terms of the invalidation file. But I think this has been updated since then. Notice it says invalidation has been created. Please wait about 60 seconds for it to finish. The invalidation file, I don't know if it's making exactly the file that we need, but I want to go down here and show you in the temp directory that sync change set. So all that is doing is it's just generating out a file here that tells you the path of each file and what action it's going to take. Terraform doesn't exactly work like this, but again, this is Terraform inspired because I have a plan, it generates a change set, and it doesn't apply. And so I thought that was kind of a cool thing to do. But the idea is that you can have these files and you can see what things have changed over time. One improvement we can make to our script is instead of calling it sync change set, we could also maybe modify it so that it has the timestamp because it's not super useful to keep overriding your change sets. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to go and extract out this single value here. And I'm going to cut this out. And we will go above here. I'm going to paste this value in here as such. And so let's just say change set path. And then I'm going to just type this again, because I'm going to want to substitute here. So for the part that it says .json, I want to, yeah, I think we could do that. We could do a regular expression here, but it's so simple that we can just do .json on this. And so the idea is I want to still have it here, but I just want to have a timestamp on it so that it's randomized, or it will make multiple ones here. So if I do time.2i here, it'll take the current time and convert it into a number. And then the idea is I can do this exclamation mark. That means apply it to the current one. I think I can do that there. Most Ruby functions, standard functions, will have an exclamation mark. So instead of having to assign it twice, you can just apply it to the in-place area. Not like Python, where some of them apply it in place and other ones you have to assign them. It makes no sense. But yeah, it's Python. If that's what you want to use, you go use it. Anyway, so the question will be, will that generate out correctly? Also, did that invalidation work? We're going to make our way over to CloudFront. I'm going to go over to invalidations. You can see May 15th that it was created. Let's go take a look if it will show us an invalidation file. And so here it's showing what it's invalidating. So it's showing exactly what it's invalidating. It's important that we create an invalidation that will not be wildcard on everything, because there's a greater cost to having to invalidate the entire cache. So you always want to invalidate the exact files. And so that generates out that invalidation JSON file or whatever it wants for that. But anyway, I want to just hit up again, and I just want to see if it's going to error out on our code. Cannot modify to frozen string. That's fair because it is copying it over. So I'm just going to go here and maybe say change set path. Let's see if I can do this. Might still complain about this. Line 29. Oh, sorry. So we didn't actually bring back that value here. I'm going to go down here and paste this in. The reason this didn't work was because I think it was still referencing the environment variable, and I guess it's a read-only one. So I want to just scroll up and take a look at what the difference is. So now notice here it's saying sync change set that. So the only thing I'd like is to have a hyphen there. And so the idea is that over time, as we deploy, we'll collect these, and that way we can check through our different ones. You know, would it make sense to upload this to S3 for longer storage so you can see changes over time? Sure, that's something you could do. It's not what I'm doing, but anyway, this sync tool seems to work pretty well. Let's go take a look here and see if it actually took effect. And notice that the exclamation mark is there. So we have a syncing tool. Something that's really cool about this is that we could take the exact same format and make it for Azure, for GCP, anywhere else where they have static website hosting. It's not like there aren't other tools out there, but it's just nice when you have a tool that you can open up. It's easy to read, and you can play around with it. So that's something that I would like to encourage you to do. And if you do, I'm sure this will show up in a future bootcamp anyway. So I'm going to just click through here and just make sure there's nothing I'm committing that I don't want to commit. Yeah, so that's all fine. So we'll go ahead and update this. So we say add syncing tool. Now, the cool thing is that we could probably automate this with GitHub Actions. So every time we push a change, it could probably run this. I don't know if that's something that I want to do because then we'll have to go learn how to use GitHub Actions. So I'm not 100% sure if I want to do that, but it would be fun also to add another CI/CD tool to our workload. Let's go take a look here and type in to ChatGPT. I don't use GitHub Actions very often. It's not hard to use. It's just not what I normally use. So run a Ruby script after with GitHub Actions. So create a .github workflow. On push branches on main, adjust the branch name if needed. Run scripts, run on Ubuntu latest. Steps, check out code. Actions, set up Ruby. So it sets up Ruby, run the script here. So I guess my question is like, how do you install gems for the GitHub action? Okay, and so here it's saying maybe we could do it that way. So that might be something interesting that we could go try out. GitHub Actions Ruby script. I feel like that would be well documented. GitHub was originally written in Ruby on Rails, or probably still has Ruby on Rails stuff there. So Ruby is very well supported on GitHub that I find. So we'll go over here. GitHub script for Ruby. This actually makes it easy to write Ruby scripts in the workflow. Okay. It's possible to change the gem file to use if you want to use octokit.rb. So I'm just looking through this here. I just want to look up GitHub Actions. So maybe we can look at this together, or I'll do a little bit of work here. As long as it doesn't take too much work, I wouldn't mind trying it out, because we do need a way to automate our deployment. And it would be really nice if we could just, push and it would run. Manage issues and pull requests. We want GitHub Actions. Use a job in a workflow. Run jobs in a container. To create a container to run any steps in a job that don't already specify a container. Well, anyway, what I want to do is I just want to go ahead and see if it works. So let's go ahead over to here. I'm just going to copy this and give this a go. So this will be under, what did it tell us to do? Make a new folder called .github workflows. Inside that, create a YAML file. So let's gamble here. It also did tell us how to do it with GPT 3.5. I don't trust 3.5. Let's go over to 4 and ask that again. It must installing a gem called, what do we call our gem? And we actually didn't need the rake here, but that's okay. Hopefully it understands what I'm trying to say here, but we'll give it a moment and find out. Actions, checkout, version 2. I would like a later version than 2.7. That's quite old. GitHub Actions, Ruby versions supported. Yeah, so we have 2.3 until 3.22. I don't know if this is true or not. It's not very easy to find anything here. Ruby version 3.1. And this is checkout version 3. So we have something that's kind of okay. So I guess we'll kind of follow along with this. So we'll go here and make a new folder. I like how I said I wasn't adding anything new to the application, but I'm always, of course, adding things. So let's say GitHub, and we'll make a new folder here called workflows. And in here, we'll make a new file called sync. Sync. Yep, that's right. This is supposed to be a YAML file, so we'll just rename that to .yaml. We'll double check what it wants, if it wants YML or YAML. It's not saying. What does it say over here? This one says YML. Firstly, create a new file called main.yml. Well, what is it supposed to be? That's what I would like to know. GitHub provides a Ruby starter workflow to get started quickly. You make this folder, okay. Assumes that the default branch of a repo is main. It is not. And so I'm going to copy some of this over here. Bring this over. This is AWS sync production frontend. Prod frontend. I don't know what the naming requirements are here, so I'm just putting a hyphen there just in case it doesn't like the space. This is on our prod branch. So it says push branches, push. It's really just when we merge the pull requests. I'm not 100% sure if that's the option we want here. We'll go over here. It wants to use Ubuntu, so we'll just go ahead and copy this. We'll bring this down here. And we'll go up a directory here. I'm not sure why it says test. Yeah, we want it to be build probably, because that's what it's doing. So go here and say build. Steps, check out Ruby. Set up Ruby. That gets a specific version. Install the dependencies. Do a bundle install. Bundle exec rake would be run the test, but this could be sync. So this is why it might make sense for us to have a sync folder. So that might be something that we want to do. So maybe we can go ahead and make our bundle exec file in here. So I'm gonna make a new file here called gem file. And I'm going to make a new file in here called rake file. And so we are bringing that stuff over. I said we weren't, but we are. And I'll go here. I'm just going to copy this contents as such. And over here for our gem file, we'll go ahead and grab this. This thing here is sometimes you need it because it messes up. It was an old fix. I don't even know if we need it anymore, but I just keep including it. I don't know if we need the .env because we'll have to set the environment variables somehow here. GitHub Actions, AWS credentials is something that I need to figure out here. And we'll go down below here. So configure AWS credentials and region for one GitHub Actions. This implements the SDK credential resolution. Okay, how do we use it? To do that, you would add the following step to your workflow. This will cause the action to perform assume web identity call and return temporary credentials. In order for this work, you'll need to use pre-configured IAM-IDP in your account, assuming the role. This is using an Amazon S3 example, so that might be the best one that we could hope for. So let's just take a look here. So the permissions are needed to interact with GitHub's OIDC token. And they're using it as a sync. So this is something very similar to what we want. It's just using the sync command with for AWS, which is very simplistic, and that's why I ended up writing a more complex example, but we could be using a sync command as a simple way of doing it. So this might be something that we want to have, but I'm not 100% sure on how we go about doing this, because there's the build step, and then there's the sync step. So it's not like we're just syncing it. We actually have to do two things. And so coming back over to here, in our this YAML file here, really we have a build and a deploy. So we have a build and a deploy. Our build would actually really be running whatever our build step is over here. Of course, we do have a container, so we could build it within that, but it'd be whatever that our build script does. So just coming back over here, so we have steps, checkout, actions, version 3. I'm just going to go ahead and copy the majority of this because this looks pretty good to me. Okay, and then we'll go down below and just kind of figure this out and rework it. So let's go here and run Ubuntu. That makes sense. We'll bring in these permissions. Again, I've never done this before. I'm just trying to figure it out as we go. We will take out, I guess you can name each step, so that's kind of nice. So this will be sync to S3 bucket. Build to S3 bucket here. Going down below here, we have some steps. So the first is to check out, configure AWS credentials from test account. Copy files to the website. So we need, I guess these two. We'll bring that up here into our steps. I'm going to bring this down here a bit more so I can see what I'm doing. The indentation level seems to be a bit different here for some reason. So here we have our checkout. I'm not sure what that is. Configure AWS credentials from the test account. So AWS actions, configure AWS credentials, role to assume. So I assume we have to put our own role there with that information. So that's interesting. Copy files to test website. Configure AWS credentials for production. I mean, that's what we really want to do, but it's just showing the exact same example. Does that show a region? So yeah, it does. So this would be, for me, CA Central 1. I would like to dynamically load environment variables here, but I'm not exactly sure on how to do that. Central 1, there we go. So yeah, there's a bit of a repetition here. But I think that's generally how we want this to work. I'm going to go over to AWS and go grab my AWS account ID. So it'll be that one here. I'm going to go back over here. We're going to paste this in here. And this would just be like sync prod website GitHub actions. So we know exactly what it's doing. So we'll have to create a role for that. But really the question is, like, how would it be able to assume that role? I feel like you'd need some kind of permissions or something. So let's go back and read a little bit more about how this thing works. We support 4 methods for fetching credentials from AWS, but we recommend that you use the OCID provider in conjunction with a configured IAM provider endpoint. So OIDC provider makes it sound like there's some app or something we connect to GitHub to do that. We'll just remember that when we were using code build, we gave it permissions through an app, so that's probably what it is. This will cause the action, to do that, you would add the following to your workflow. This will cause the action to perform and assume role with identity, call and return temporary security credentials for use by other actions. In order for this to work, you'll need to pre-configure the IDP in your account, AWS account, assuming a role for details. You can use this action with this AWS CLI, GitHub virtual environments, or run this application multiple times to use different AWS accounts. Let's go take a look at what they're saying over here. There are 4 different supported ways to retrieve credentials. And so the IDP one is the main one, specifying role to assume without providing those informations will signal to the actions that you wish to use the OIDC provider. Okay, the default session is 1 hour. The default session is 6 hours when using IAMuser. If you'd like to adjust this, you can pass a different value. Okay, assume role with static IAM credentials in a repository secret. So this is another way that we could do it. I'm not sure where the repository is here, but oh, here we go. We have a CloudFormation template. So maybe we can provision what it is that we need. So the CloudFormation template for the IDP for you. So GitHub org, repository name, provider, conditions. This is the role. So I'm going to go ahead and grab this, and this will make our lives probably a lot easier if we do this. I wonder if this also creates the role for us. It does. Okay, so maybe we'll have to rename it based on what we have there. So I'm going to go here, copy this, and I'm going to go over to our CloudFormation, which is here. I'm going to make a new folder here called sync. And I'm going to make a new file here called template.yaml. I'm going to go ahead and paste that in here. And let's just read through this quickly, see if there's any values we need to change. I'm not sure what this thumbprint list is. I assume we can leave that alone. It's probably specific to GitHub based on this link here. This is going to output the role ARN. And so in here, we need to load some things. We'll bring in our config.toml like we were doing before to make things a lot easier. I'm going to go ahead and split this open here. How do we do our config.toml? Just double checking. So we have our deploy, and then we have our parameters. So we'll bring these over here. I'm just going to drop that down here. And I'm going to go over to, I think it was our database where we actually have parameters. Yep, like that. And I'll bring that down. And we'll make our way back over to our sync. Over here. Yeah, it's the same one. And so this one's just CFN sync role. Well, this would be artifact still, but this would be sync role. And then there's some things we need to set here. So we'll open that up. We'll go over here. We have our org that we need to set. GitHub org. We have our repository name. And maybe it's going to be the same for everybody. It's going to be AWS Bootcamp, what we call it? AWS Bootcamp. Or we can click back here and find it the slow way. We'll go ahead and grab this. We'll paste this in here. Drag this over. So that's the repository name. The org name is, for me, it's Omen King. We'll just copy this redundantly, even though we've set that there as the default, but I just have a feeling that's what we're going to have it as. Here it's saying OCID provider ARN. The ARN for the GitHub OCID, I don't know what that has to be, the OCID audience. So audience apply to configure, that's the default, so we'll leave that alone. The default empties here, I'm not sure if that is correct. So this is the only thing I don't know. So we'll bring this one over here and put that as empty as they are doing it there. Conditions, create OCID. So here it looks like it's creating it. And then it references the ARN, which is empty. So I'm not sure if that's okay. We haven't really used how many, what do you call it? I don't think we've actually ever used conditions. It's because a lot of times I just don't have the need for it. But here it says, if we create the OCID, then we're going to reference it here. Maybe we don't even need to set it. And then the conditions down here is a bit different. So here, if the string equals OCID, then do this. If the string is like this, it's going to do that instead for the repository and name. So yeah, I'm not 100% sure what needs to be done there, but let's make our way back over to that template and give it a bit of a read. Set up federation with the provider in an IAM IDP. The GitHub OCID provider only needs to be created once per account. Multiple IAM roles can be assumed. So when it's talking about that, I wonder if we're talking about the identity provider identity center. I wonder if that's what it's talking about, which I don't actually have turned on in my AWS account. I usually avoid it. Yeah, so I wonder if it was talking about this identity center. This used to be called single sign-on. I'm just clicking through here, if it'll ever click through here. This actually only works in the root account of the root user, I think, or at least the root account. So I'm not even sure if I would be able to play with that at all. But that's what I'm not sure about, is this OCID provider ARN. This is loading really slow. So let me just go read and find out, okay? All right, so AWS actually has a page about the OIDC providers in here. And so what they're saying is that even before we can create it, we actually have to get, we have to register with our IDP first and get a client ID. I'm going to assume that's just making apps or something in GitHub. But let's go back to IAM here, because I think I have more confidence in terms of where this is. I think I've seen it before, but it's not just something I've had to do very often. So we'll go over here. And I believe if we go over to IAM, I've seen on the left-hand side before identity providers, and that's what we're doing. And so it's not with the identity center, because that's for single sign-on. But on the left-hand side here, we have identity providers. And so we can add a provider here. And so we're choosing OpenID, and then we're providing information. See, it says get thumbprint and stuff like that. So specify the secure OpenID URL. So the question is it already doing this? Is that what this script is doing if we go over here? So if we go over here and scroll on down, AWS IAM OCID provider. So it looks like it's already creating it there because it's providing that information. But what I don't understand is still this ARN here. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm just going to run it and see that it fails, and maybe we'll learn something in the process. But I just feel like there's something missing. Could be that I'm just hungry. It is almost lunch for me, and I had very minimal for breakfast. But what I'm going to do here is go into our CFN directory. I'm going to make a new file here called sync. And we will then go ahead and copy from one of our existing ones like database. Maybe not database. How about cluster? I just want one that has parameters, and that one already does. So we'll go ahead and paste that on in here. And the difference is this is going to be sync and sync. I'm going to go down below here. This is just sync here. And this is going to be sync. Okay, and so I think that should work. I'm going to do a chmod on that, as we have done multiple times. This pop-up is messing things up for me, and I'll bump this up a little bit more so I can see what I'm looking at. It is not bumping up. It is, oh, there we go. It was just a bit delayed, and now it's really mad at me. So I'll just bring that down a bit. And what we'll do is we'll chmod that again. So we'll do u plus x bin CFN sync. Okay, and then we'll attempt to run this. And maybe we'll learn something in the process. Now, if we can't do this GitHub Actions, it becomes too complicated. That's okay. We can just kind of quit it, or we can leave it as homework. It definitely is something possible. It's just a matter of, do we want to put the time sync in right now? Because I said that we're supposed to be wrapping up the bootcamp, not adding things last minute. So template file not found at sync cluster. I guess we did not update this correctly. So yeah, we did not. So this is supposed to be CFN, sorry. If Baco ever found out they were doing this, he'd be like, Andrew, what are you doing? We got to wrap it up. So unknown options, dependencies. Why are we having so many problems here today? Get out of here, extension thing. Every time I try to copy paste here. So unknown options, dependencies. We haven't really had too many problems with our templates prior, so I'm not sure what its problem is. Yeah, I'm not sure. All I can think of is maybe I messed this up somehow, but it doesn't look like I did. Give me a second here. I'll be back in a second, okay? You know, I wonder what it could be is I wonder if because we don't have the version here at the top, this was a script that we obviously didn't make, so it might be missing a couple things here. So I'm going to go to the top here and we'll copy this. And we'll paste this in here. We'll see if that resolves that issue. We'll go ahead and hit up. Fingers crossed. No, that did not fix it. So give me a bit more time here. Again, this is not a script that we wrote, so maybe there's something we're missing. All right, so what I did is I put a console log here, and what I'm noticing is that I have the echo and then I have my parameters. And so for my parameters, it's actually printing out this. And it's saying resolving dependencies. Now, it shouldn't say resolving dependencies because it should really just be GitHub, GitHub org and options. So this thing is specific to CFN-TOML. So I'm going to look this up for Ruby. Like, why is that happening? And so maybe what it's doing, it's having some kind of issue with CFN-TOML. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to do gem install CFN-TOML again. Maybe it's just not correctly installed. And we'll try this again. Yeah, why is it saying resolving dependencies? That's very frustrating. What we could also do is try to run this command manually. So I'm going to just go ahead and echo out this command here. And then we can exactly see what this command is doing. And the advantage of that is we can copy and paste it out. So if we go here, it will print out this command. It should anyway. I'm just going to go here and just put echo params output. You never know when things are just going to go wrong on you for no reason. Happens all the time. So in params, it's still saying resolving dependencies. It's not printing out the config path. Okay, echo config path, please. Just come on. Do what I ask you to do today. That's all I'm asking for. And so this is the config path here. And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and paste this here. And I'm going to run this manually. Because this should tell us what's going on, right? So if I go run this, I'm going to type clear. I'm going to run this, hit enter. And it keeps running resolving dependencies, resolving dependencies. It's not supposed to output that. So let me go figure it out. I'll be back here in a moment, okay? All right, so I'm not 100% sure why that's happening, but it clearly is happening because of the gem, so we do have to go and fix it. A detour as always, but you know what? This would probably impact other folks when they're doing the CFN stuff, so I definitely have to go ahead and fix this. So I'm going to go ahead and look for that. I think it's under teacher seat, and we're going to go find the CFN-TOML. So we'll go ahead there and look it up. Again, you're just watching me debug, here to learn, not necessarily have to do anything. Just watch along because you will have to fix the implementation once we fix it. So the thing is that we have this gem created, and over here it probably has dependencies. And so it could be that there is some kind of resolution problem that it's having. And so that is what I'm trying to figure out right now. So over here, there is a lock file. And so maybe what I can do is I can just see if I do a bundle install, and maybe the lock file just needs to be updated, and that would resolve that issue there. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to It says bundle install, 4 gems are now installed. So that sounds fine. I want to see if the gem lock file has been updated. So notice that it's been updated. It says 10.0.12. Nothing's really changed, but what I want to do is I want to make sure that this actually works. And so one way that we can make sure this works is we can make an example. So I can make a new folder here called examples. And maybe what we can do is try to figure out how to run this. So I'm going to say new file, and this is going to be, test. I'm just trying to think here how we could run this, because this gem file has to get installed. And that's what I'm trying to figure out. So do I have one here for locally testing? So I'm just trying to think here. To install it, we can specify a specific path. Testing or installing gems from local path without bundler. So I don't want to use bundler for that. Yeah, so I think this is how we could do it. I'm going to go over here and give this a go. Testing locally. So install the gem by referencing the local path. Path to gemfile.gem. So we'd have to generate that out there. I'm going to go back over here. So this would probably produce 1.0 whatever. So I'm going to go here and build a gem. Build cfn toml.gemspec here. Okay, so that builds out that version, 1.012. And so then here is an example where we could say cfn, I'll just do period / cfn toml hyphen 1.0. I could just probably copy it from here, so we have less of a problem, and paste that in there. And so maybe this will locally install if we do this. Okay, so now this should be installed. I'm going to just see if it works. So cfn toml. And a new release of RubyGem has been installed. I don't care about that. Did you mean spellcheckers.merge has been deprecated? Please call this instead. I'm not sure why that's running. Config.toml here. And I'm going to go over here to our example here. Just copy this. So we can see if this loads. I'm going to do cfn toml, probably file, examples, config.toml. And what did we specify for this here? If we go back over to this one, we ran params version 2 like that. So I'm just going to go ahead and grab that. It's actually -t, not -f. Don't even know my own CLI. I'm going to go ahead and copy this as the next command. I don't know why that's popping up. Maybe it's not, cfn toml is not actually installed. I just think it is. So yeah, I don't know why this keeps popping up. But I guess the question is this actually running the script here? Because it's supposed to be showing this if we don't do anything. So if I do cfntoml here, if I do -v, it should show the version. We just keep getting this stupid thing. Oh, down below here, cfntoml version unknown. Oh, interesting. Oh, I guess we have a cfntoml init. I didn't even realize we had that. That's kind of cool. Oh, right. I wrote that so you could populate a file. Yeah, see here, cfntoml init my stack profile, so you could load that information there. So that's pretty cool. Yeah, I just wanted to load the toml file, but I'm not 100% sure what's going on here. All right, let me investigate this. I'll be back in a moment, okay? Well, actually, no, look, it actually printed stuff down here below, but it's running this thing. So this thing is not supposed to be here for some reason. And I don't know why, because I don't think we have a spell checker installed. So if we go over to our gem spec here, this is what stuff is being installed. We have toml rb, which is the one of the dependencies that we're using. So it could be toml rb is our problem. So I'm going to go over here and look up toml rb. I'm going to see if it uses spell checker. This is the problem when you're relying on other people's code. You never know what junk they're installing here. Nothing special. There's something called Citrus. But let me go back over here, and I just want to copy this and see if Google shows me anything. Warning when using Ruby 3.1 that ships. Did you mean 1.6 deprecated warning? Very close to the release. I'll be releasing 2.34. So this is specific with Bundler that the problem is with. I'm going to go read up about it. I'll be back here in a moment, okay? There seems to be a lot of different solutions for this. One is just doing a bundle update bundler. Let's take a look and see if that does that. If there is a new version of bundler, that could be the issue. So 249 was the old one. I'm going to check what the new one is. 2413. So maybe it's not even cfntoml, it's just bundler that's causing the issue. So now there's no issue. Let's go back over here, and I'm going to go and run this bundle version here. So we'll say bundle version 214, and see it's even happening for this one. And so I'm going to go back over to, wherever that command was I just ran. And I'm going to go back over here. And so this is more of a issue with Gitpod than it is with cfntoml. So now it's outputting correctly. So this is a cfntoml. This is not a cfntoml issue. This is an issue with Gitpod. Okay, so Gitpod's environment is not 100% up to date. I mean, it's good enough, but that's probably where we're running into this problem. Sorry, did we run it on the right one here? Just gonna try this again here. And yeah, now that problem is gone. So what we can do is we can go to our Gitpod YAML file, and wherever our Ruby is, wherever we do Ruby stuff, actually I don't really care where we put this. I'm just gonna put it here. And so that should update bundler, and so that will resolve our issue for next time that is happening. But it's interesting to go through that and see what the issue could be. Do I want to keep any of this stuff here? Probably not. I'm just going to take this out and close that out. Actually, I want to make sure that environment is not running, so I'm going to go back to Gitpod. I'm going to go to that dashboard and make sure there's nothing additional running here. So we'll just go ahead and to stop that one, we don't need to delete it. And so now we're back in business. So that was one issue we were running into. Okay. Now we can go back and get back on track here. So we will go and run that script again, that sync thing that we were trying to do earlier. And so now it's outputting stuff correctly. We're getting our change set, so that is great. I'm going to go back to my sync. And we're going to take out all these echoes here. See what we're doing. That as well. That as well. And so it's created our change set. We'll go over to AWS and we'll see if this works. If it doesn't work, that's totally fine. We don't need to do this GitHub Action stuff. If it was easy, I just wanted to do it. But apparently, we're already getting kind of too much of a detour here. We'll go back over to review in progress. We'll go over to change sets. We'll go ahead and take a look at what it's doing. It's creating that provider, the IAM role. We'll go ahead and execute that change set. We'll cross our fingers and hope this works. We'll go over here. It shouldn't take too long to make, but I'll be back here if it succeeds or not, okay? So it did create this stack. I'm still not really confident about its configuration because I feel like I'm missing some important information here, but it did create a role. Let's go over and take a look at this role and see what permissions it has. So if we go to the trust relationship, this is what it would assume. Notice under here, it shows no permission. So I would think that this is the role that we are providing to it, and we're supposed to attach policies for it to be able to do stuff. And so I'm going to go ahead and just create an inline policy here. This is what I think you're supposed to do. Again, I don't know. I've never done this before, but we'll go ahead and we'll put in S3. And what we want to do is we want to give it a few options. So we want it to be able to read. So we'll say get object. We also probably want it to be able to put object. We probably want it to be able to list bucket. And so those seem like the most important ones, I think. We'll go down here, and I want to be very specific what bucket we're talking about. So here we are talking about Crutter.com. Yours is going to be different than mine. No, we just want Crutter.com here. Sometimes they change this thing. There's probably like a newer one that was changing things on me. And then here it's going to be any object, and we're going to say Crutter.com. Very common to have these two when we're doing these actions here. And so that's what I think that it needs access to do. Probably also delete, now that I'm thinking about it. So maybe delete objects. I don't know if there's like a describe in here. I'm just going to put that in here. Sometimes there's describe actions. No, I don't think so. So I think those are the actions we need here is the put, get, list, delete, because that's all it's really doing is those four actions. I don't know if there's like a post as well. I'm just going to say post. I think it's just put. We'll go ahead and create this policy. Just like update Crutter S3 access for syncing. Okay. And so that should probably provide it the correct access, assuming this is what we're supposed to be doing. And so I'll copy this out. And now if we go back over to this script up here, which is in our GitHub sync YAML. Don't know if it's supposed to be named main still, but we're just putting stuff in here. And so what I'm going to do is go ahead and grab that. Actually, if we want to make our lives a little bit easier, we could probably just go to this role and grab the full ARN. And then we don't have to make any mistakes. So we'll just go ahead and grab it like that. And I know this is hard-coded value, but I don't know any other way to put it in here, at least not yet. So I'm just going to clear that out, and we'll paste that on in here as such. And so now we have that. 3.1 sounds good to me. This is going to have us do bundle install. That's why we need the gem file there. This one's going to run the sync, which makes sense to me as well. The other thing here is that we do need it to build out. We can do that in a separate step. The question is, are these artifacts accessible across these steps? Because that's something I don't know about actions, but I'll just go here and we're going to just say statically build files. And it's probably going to also run on Ubuntu here. The thing I need to know is how do we do a package install? So npm or like run npm build with nvars for GitHub Actions. It's not even listening to me. Okay, it's doing it for the wrong one here, so I'm going to go here, and we'll just go here. We'll talk about secrets, which might be interesting. With a Ruby and Node.js app, I'm still, again, not talking about Ruby. Oh, I wrote the word Ruby. That's the problem. Sorry. We'll try this again. We'll see 4. Go to settings, secrets. Okay, so there is a secret setting. It's taking its time here, though. I'll be back here when this finishes generating out. We don't need to watch this. You know, instead of watching that, I just went back to the Ruby one here, and I bet there's probably one for Node.js here. So let's just do that and speed this up, and also be able to see something that is up to date. Because I imagine this will have a much later version. So we have up to 20x. Remember when it was like under 10? It's crazy how often Node.js updates their versions. But I'm going to just do -node v here. This is using 18. There's clearly newer versions than 18. Like 20, but we'll just go with 18 here because that is the safe bet. If this is the future, you might have to use something newer. So in this one, I'm going to go ahead and grab this, and I'm going to go over here. I'm going to paste this in here. I don't really understand this whole matrix thing. I'm just going to go grab 18. Okay, I assume that just allows you to have more than one version. For the Ruby one, we just want it to be Ruby. Yeah, with Ruby version 3.1 down below here. Not exactly sure how it's supposed to work here for GitHub, so I'm just going to go with what their code shows. I wanted to use checkout version 3. I'm noticing version 2 is showing up for, whatever there. And I guess here we don't need to have a matrix version. We could have just specified the node version directly here, but I'm just going to do that anyway, and we'll just go ahead and grab these steps, and we'll go here and just paste this in. And for our steps, there is CI, which you're supposed to do. You're not supposed to do install. You're supposed to do CI. For some reason, it's for the package stuff. I knew at one point. So it says npm run build if present. I don't need to do a test. But actually that is what I'm doing, is I'm doing a build. I don't know what this if present flag is, so I'm just going to take that out because I don't know what that does, and I don't think I need it. What I'm interested in is those nvars, which they say get set as secrets. So maybe that is the next thing I need to do. This is only going to work if we're in the correct directory, so I'm not sure exactly how we do directory changes in this. Maybe we are supposed to just do that and do like run cd and then go into front end React.js. Also don't know how I pass one artifact to another. So how do you pass artifacts between build and deploy for GitHub Actions? I assume that they use the word artifacts. Maybe they don't. I'll be back here when this finishes generating, okay? So it generated out this thing that says upload build artifact here. So version 2, my artifact -dist. Then down below here, steps with my artifact. So it does kind of seem like there's an upload and a download. I don't know if that is a standardized thing with GitHub Actions. So what I'm going to do is try to find that over here in the documentation. I'll be back here in a moment, okay? And also, interestingly, I was just trying to commit my code here, but apparently it's not letting me do it without workflow scope. So what I'm going to do for the time being, I'm just going to rename this to example. And maybe it will cry less about it. Let's see if I can commit that. I didn't know that was like a GitHub thing that it wouldn't let me do. Let me commit working example. I guess that kind of makes sense because it is doing stuff. So can I sync that? Is that going to work? Git push. Yeah, I'm not 100% sure if that's doing what I wanted to do. So I'm just going to go here, rename this to GitHub for now. Okay, because I just want to commit this code. I just don't want to get rid of it. But I just want, if you ran into that issue, I wanted to show you that I was having an issue. WIP. There we go. But we're going to rename it back to .github. I'm just going to go read a bit more about these artifacts. I want to investigate this upload download thing, okay? All right, so I am reading about this, and we do have artifacts, and it does sound like there's an upload to download action. It is saying that it goes and stores it somewhere on, some place on GitHub here, and there could be some billing costs there. So, usage limits and billing administration, maybe for GitHub Actions, might be something that would be interesting to look in. So for public repos, you can change the retention period to 1 to 90 days. But it's not really telling me the cost here. Okay, so free, 20 concurrent jobs, maximum 5. But what's the cost of storage? GitHub Actions storage costs. I'm looking for storage here. GitHub free, so you get 500 megabytes. So I think we're okay. I don't think GitHub is really, you pay at the tier that you're at. I don't think it's at a per usage thing, so I'm not too worried about it. I just hope we don't land anyone in any trouble there. But yeah, it seems like we can store stuff like 500 megabytes. I don't think that what we're generating out is that large. I guess we could find out by just taking a look at our downloaded zip that we had earlier, or just look at this folder. So if we go back to our desktop here, I'm going to go and get a properties here, and it's going to tell us this is about 4 megabytes. So it's pretty darn small. It's a little bit larger than I'd like it to be. But really the question is that, would that add up really quickly? And we get 500 megabytes of storage. So, how does it clear out older ones? Every month, while storage does not. Okay, well, but where is storage? That's what I don't know. So another thing that we could do is if we didn't want to, well, the problem is that we use 2 different things to build. We have one for Node.js and then one for Ruby. I'm not sure if we can have 2 runtimes in the same place. That would be very useful if we had it. When we're using AWS Code Build, we can do that. It's very easy to do it. But yeah, people always talk about GitHub Actions like it's super easy. And I'm looking at this, I'm going, is it? It just looks like the same thing to me as Code Build and Code Pipeline, but I have to figure it out. But it apparently does have a lot more pluggable stuff that's in here. So I'm not 100% sure if I want to do this right now. I think that we have the application working. We don't have to worry about this. This is kind of like a homework challenge for anybody that wants to do it. But I'm going to leave the code in here just in case that we do want to come back to this. I'm just uncertain. I don't want to extend our timeline, but it was worth investigating and kind of learning. So yeah, maybe down the road or in the future bootcamp, we'll just include it, okay? So now that we have our syncing working, I guess the next thing is to make sure the application works. So we'll have to go hook up the databases next and make sure the backend works. So yeah, I'll see you in the next one. I'm going to go upload this one, and ciao.